focus on sweet. Yeah, very good. And Vaughan Williams, a prominent composer in the the first half of the 20th century. One of England's kind of premier composers, especially. England has an odd thing, you guys probably remember from music history. They have a bunch of really influential composers in like the 1600s, and then you don't hear a lot from English composers until the 20th century again. So Vaughan Williams is one of those guys that kind of came to the forefront again, and I think I'd be interested in Dr. Overley's take on it, but you know, from what I've heard and from what I understand, I think a lot of it had to do with in the 1700s, especially, well, 1600s and 1700s especially, they had a lot of conflicts between, are they going to be Protestant or are they going to be Catholic? The Catholic regimes tended to support the arts more. The Protestants were kind of more like the Puritans, where that was all part of the Catholic Church and throw it all out. It's like the baby with the bathwater thing. And so then after a while, I think composers and people who were interested in the arts just went other places and did other things, because Europe was pretty cosmopolitan at that point. But you know, you had Handel coming to London in the early 1700s, mid 1700s, and writing The Messiah and a bunch of other stuff. But he was German, you know. So at least there was by that point, it was Protestant, but they kind of brought back in some of those things, and at least they had those, but it wasn't, like the homegrown composers weren't at the same level as they were in other places of Europe, so kind of interesting. But anyway, Vaughan Williams, one of the not only influential composers in English history, but in band history too. He was one of the first serious composers to write specifically for concert band. So most of the top tier composers were writing for orchestra at the time, and concert band was just kind of becoming an ensemble that played advanced music and could do advanced things, and a lot of the instruments had just been really developed and perfected at the end of the 1800s and in the early 1900s. So now they could do professional things similar to what strings had been able to do for a couple hundred years at that point. So, so this is one of the important historical pieces, but still one that's accessible and enjoyable to audiences today. So, been over 100 years, or around 100 years now since the era that this music came from. But pretty cool. Okay, so I'll give you a chance now. That's historical background. What are you hearing as music educators, as instrumental directors? What do you notice about that piece?
Well, I think a tricky thing would be the woodwind section with the jig. It's very quick in the fingering.
Yeah.
What I remember is very.
So if we were going to say a form for this piece, obviously it says march, which itself is a form, but I think in this case it's a little more of a style than a form. What would the form be? There's kind of a clear 3 sections. What would we say that is? You have to talk up, Mike. I can't hear you.
Oh, that's okay.
Okay. So there's
I'd probably say rounded binary, almost.
Okay. I hear it as a ternary, which would have a similar thing. So it kind of has the whole opening section, then it has the jig section that comes back to the opening section. I'd have to look at the score, but as I was doing,
I know we played it with the Tubular Quartet.
Okay.
Freshman year.
Okay.
So I remember that we had kind of like a DC where we just kind of came back.
Right. Yeah, and you just play the whole first half of the piece again. So you know depending on how you're dividing up the first section, what you're doing with it, but yeah, it's kind of that ABA feel, whether this whole sections or you're kind of putting that. But as Noah was saying, the middle kind of has that woodwind jig going on top of everything, which is kind of an Irish feel actually to it, which is interesting. And it's in a lot of the instruments, so it's not just your best instrument. Your best players have to be able to play that quickly and jumping around and everything, but all of them have to play it. So yeah, that'd definitely be one of the more difficult things. What else were you guys hearing or thinking about?
I feel like, I don't know, from repertoire standpoint,
Mhm.
it's well-rounded and kind of like having both melodic section but like really moving section. So I guess it'd be a good staple piece, but it's definitely for more advanced ensembles just because of that jig section.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say, oh yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Oh, I was thinking that, maybe the woodwinds might rush a little bit.
Okay, I think in actuality,
Who knows?
most of them have trouble keeping up with it. They'd be dragging more than rushing, but it'd be a technical thing. But when you have an advanced ensemble, maybe that could happen. But as far as high school kids, I think it'd be more of trying to get them up to speed and being able to move their fingers that fast and stay up with it. But what's happening during that jig section, rhythmically, metrically, that also could be tricky for the kids? So the main tune is bum 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 in a low brass, right? And at the same time, in the jig. So what's happening there? What would we call that?
2 against 3.
Yeah, it's kind of a duple feel on the main melody and a triple feel on the top, right? So it's do da dee do da dee do da dee do 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 do. The two sections kind of have they're both in 2, but one's split a 2 that's split into 2s, one's a 2 that's split into 3. So yeah, that would be something that definitely is tricky for kids to do. So yeah, where would you grade this as far as like one? Think of the grades as like a level a good group would be after that many years of instruction. So like grade 1 would be after meeting every day for a school year, your first year. Grade 2, 2 years. Grade 3, 3 years. Where do you think this one would fall? And again, using 3 is upper junior high, lower high school. 4 solid high school. 5 really advanced high school or college. 6 professional. Kind of using it, it'd be somewhere in that frame. Where would you put it in that frame, you think?
I think I'll probably put 4.
Yeah, and I think on most graded lists it is a 4. Some would probably have it as a 5, especially if it were performed as a whole work. It's a multi-movement work. So kind of master works that are multi-movement, and knowing what's in the other 2 movements, if you're thinking of the whole thing at once, it might be a 5. But I think that first movement, most good high school programs could program that, especially on an end of the year concert, and especially if you had more than one group. If you had an upper group, that'd be definitely something they could do. If you had a group that was like at a smaller school, Christian school, that was kind of 8 through 12, graded 8 through 12, or 7 through 12, all in one group, that'd probably be a pretty difficult piece for them to handle, just because it does require all of the students, to be at a higher level, as opposed to just a couple. So, what did you hear tonality-wise? We talked about meters.
Is that really actually not Dory? King Dory.
All right. So the primary tune would have that 1-7-1 harmony with a re mi fa sol la ti do re type of sound to the scale. So again, a lot to teach from this piece. You have tonalities, you have mixed meter, or I don't know if you'd say mixed meters, but 2 meters superimposed on each other. If you went on to the other, like the intermezzos, really slow, lyrical, one of those kind of phrasing and musicianship movements, and then the last mark, folk songs from Somerset March, gets a little faster again. So taken as a whole work, there's a lot of reasons why it's one of the standards, but really well written, a lot to teach from it, and even to today's audience is enjoyable to listen to. So it's one of those serious classical pieces in a way, because it's written by one of those composers, but in another way, it's very accessible because it uses a folk type feel and has a lot of variety and things that's easy for an audience to latch on to. So, yeah, okay, cool. Well, let's keep going. So, Noah, did you guys play that in the academy while you were there?
Yes.
I was thinking I remember that on one of your concerts. Yeah, so I know that that's the type of piece that Mr. Wright would enjoy doing with you guys if he had a group that could do that, which you guys normally would be able to at the academy. They have a good level high school group there. So, all right. So let's take a moment and let's pray before we go on. Let's pray for Trevor. Pray for everybody traveling the next few days. So you're at home, you live in town, you guys sticking around or? Okay, and you live in the dorms, so no traveling for you guys. I'm not sure what Trevor's up to, but I'm on campus too, so. But a lot of them, I'll probably be driving here the next few days quite a bit, so let's pray for safety on the roads. And I'm going to pray that the electricity stays on as much as possible. I mean, being from southern Michigan, we had ice storms every year. Power went out every year for 2-3 days, sometimes up to a week at a time. And, you know, if you have your generator or your kerosene heaters or all that set up, because it happens all the time, that's one thing. But a lot of people around here probably don't. And it's going to be cold. It's going to be 20s and low 30s. So I think of, you know, people that are either homeless or just don't have good housing situations. It's going to be a difficult few days for a lot of those people. So let's just pray for everyone that's dealing with the storm here, and that God would do good things even through the hardships that some would face because of that. I went to Walmart last night, and I was looking for a couple things, and then I was like, oh yeah, people are going to probably be making a run on all the food. I better go check, and sure enough, there's like 3 things of milk left at that point, and no bread except one gluten-free loaf, and you know. So I'm like, okay, so if our electricity's off, what can we eat without cooking it here? And I like went up and down all the aisles and got some stuff, but just adds a lot of extra stress into people's lives. But anything from you guys today to praise the Lord for, or to pray for?
My bank, there's my tuition, $14,000. It's been over a week and it still didn't clear out.
So you're still having trouble with your money, are you saying?
Yes, there's another one.
There's another one? Okay.
Yes,
Because he was telling me last night his money finally cleared for his textbooks, so.
Yeah, well, that was the $2,000 one.
Okay,
But it was $14,000 for my tuition.
14,000, okay.
Yes.
And what, do you know what the problem is? What?
I don't know, it says it's pending, but I try to deposit it, like, would be when school starts.
Really? And it's still pending?
Yes.
Okay, interesting.
And that's the longest I have waited. They
Okay.
usually clear up by around 4 days.
Yeah, right.
And
3 to 5 days is normal.
It's been like over a week.
Huh. Interesting. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what to tell you there. You might want to, is your bank local or is it from
Truist.
Truist? Yeah. You might want to pop in or call them or something, just double check on that. That is unusual. So, yeah. All right, well, let's pray. Lord, thank you for our time together again today. Thank you for the guys and just the joy it is to interact with them, to teach them, to get to know them here as young instrumental directors and music educators and help them take their next steps on that path here this semester. Pray for Trevor. I just pray that you give him healing, that you give him the ability to not get behind with things, and just encourage him at this time of not feeling well. Let him get the help he needs, if he needs medicines or whatever it is he needs to get better quickly. I pray that you just allow him to do that. And thank you for Mike's money for his books coming in. Pray that this deposit would clear for his tuition as quickly as possible and that he could get that figured out. And we just pray for all that will be dealing with the cold and no electricity and tricky traveling conditions here the next few days. Pray that you give safety, that you would show your love and your care to your people, for each other and for others in need, Lord. And pray that it would be your will that we could keep our power on as much as possible as well during this time. Pray for safety for our own students and others as they travel, especially as some of the conditions might be slippery where they're headed to or from, and that you just help them take their time and be safe and bring everybody back together next week, ready for a great semester. Pray these things in Jesus' name, amen. All right, chapter 2, teaching rhythm and rhythm reading. What struck you in this chapter? What would you like to bring to the class today?
I have a question about that. How do you, I mean, it depends on when you start teaching, but like if you jump right in, and how do you incorporate the rhythm syllables that you want to use, and how do you get, like, accommodate for students that are coming into the school that have been using a different system?
Yeah, and like I told you guys, I had a lot of my kids all the way up through elementary music, so the majority of my kids always were very familiar with it by the time they got to band, and it'd be the same thing for orchestra. But every year we had kids coming in that were new, and even all the way through high school that hadn't had the system before. So I'd always just, in the beginning group, you're just kind of teaching them everything from the beginning. So again, we'd start the first few days, we'd have, it was like part general music class, part learning to put together our instruments and play our first couple notes, you know. So we'd sing songs, move, do rhythm patterns back and forth. I'd teach them the duple and triple meter rhythm patterns at that point, and review them for everybody else, teach the new ones. For high school kids, I would just, if they knew counting, I'd kind of say it's like counting, only we don't say the numbers, and here's the syllables, and they catch on pretty fast. We worked through rhythm sheets in all my courses as far as reading rhythms. So after we kind of got comfortable saying them, then I'd show them how to apply it to the notation, and we'd practice reading them and playing them as part of warm-ups, especially at the beginning of the year, each year. So it was something, like the younger you are, the more it's looking like general music, where it's rote teaching at first, and the older they are, it's just explaining how it connects to what they know and then practicing it. And so they could have it as an effective tool. And remember, solfege and rhythm syllables are tools that are meant to be used when needed, but eventually grown out of musically. Now you guys, you look at rhythms, you just know how they sound, and that's our goal. But it's a kind of bridge between the sounds and the notation that's really helpful for students to have in that systematic way. So, is that answering what you're asking?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So a lot with the young kids, and especially at the beginning of the year with all of them, but more based on reading the further along they went. But we'd still do a little back and forth, a little improvising. That's just good for engaging people's ideation and playing things back and forth with our instruments and whether patterns, or we'll talk about some of the options here today in our class. So, yeah. What else? What struck you guys?
I know it talked about having the students be able to feel the rhythm first before teaching the theory behind it.
Yeah.
How would that look more practically in a classroom?
All right. So, and I'm just going to say it loud so it can go on the video. So he's asking, how would the sound before sight, hearing and feeling rhythms before reading them look in the classroom? It'd be a similar answer to Noah. It'd look a lot like the activities we were doing in developing the musical mind, but instead of doing them with two people, you're doing them with a whole group, where you're doing different rhythm you're having to move in a duple meter and echo rhythm patterns. Gradually you're working your way through the different macrobeat, microbeat, the different functions, divisions, elongations. So if you have, like often in the back of a strings or band book, there will be pages of, and I'll show you one of these later, pages of rhythm exercises that you can practice, or you can make up your own, or you can get them from the different sources, but having something that can kind of help them sequentially work through easy to difficult to audiate rhythms. First just echoing them verbally with syllables, then yesterday we had that, and we'll practice again today, we had that kind of like 5 steps where the teacher says, the students do, kind of going through that type of thing. And then that's more for the younger students as you're teaching them to read notation. Then the better they get at notation, the more it's just moving and saying what they see on the page and then playing it. And it's not everything, it's after you get a couple years into it, it's just things that are new. So if you're introducing a new type of rhythm, a new meter, a new rhythm function, a new notation, rhythm notation they haven't seen, that's when you do those activities more, other than just kind of a review at the beginning of the year. So is that what you're asking, or do you want specific details in areas?
No, I feel like that covers a
Okay.
lot of it, because I know in the textbook, it kind of gives some practical
Mhm.
applications of it, but I was like,
So if we're thinking program-wide, remember in elementary we're spending a long time with just oral, then gradually adding syllables after, maybe in, like in kindergarten it's mostly oral. First grade, second grade doing a lot with syllables, third, fourth grades getting to where we're starting to read rhythm patterns or tonal patterns, and then gradually putting those together into melodies. But if you're talking about secondary music that starts in, say, 6th grade, you kind of have to know that everybody's had something, but probably not exactly what you're teaching, and that some people haven't had a good something. So you kind of go through that same order, but not over years. It's over weeks or even within a lesson. So maybe I'll do something that's just without syllables. Then right after that I'll do it with syllables. Then right after that I show them notation. So it's the same order, but it's more and more compressed time the more advanced the students get. And then again, by high school you're probably just doing that type of thing to teach new students how the system works at the beginning of the year, and then practice reading. You probably have, it's good to have some kind of method book that's based on rhythms that you're going through and reading more and more advanced rhythms so that they learn how to do rhythm notation. One of your method books is usually based on rhythm in ensembles, or maybe it has that as a section. Maybe it has rhythmic stuff, melodic stuff, chorales, scale. There's different types of method books that'll have that type of thing in there too. So as you get older, it's just the same, making sure they have the level that's below it if you're thinking through the skill levels of audiation. But one thing I would say is having them not only do rote stuff and echo stuff, but have them practice improvising things back and forth. That's what really locks it in musically for them, and it also tells you how well they have it. So in a large ensemble, you wouldn't necessarily have time to go you and one person at a time all the way through the group, but if they're in meter or in tonal function, they can answer as a group vocally and then with their instruments, and you can hear if it's sounding right. And then you can have them pair up and do things with their neighbors as well too. So those are a few of the ways in a large ensemble situation that you can get at some of this stuff. But again, the younger they are, the longer you're spending on each kind of stage in the process. The older they are, the more compressed it is, and you're just going back when you need to get ready for something new. And it's a couple minutes in a lesson type of thing. So, all right, yeah, great questions. Mike, was there anything from chapter 2 that you wanted to talk about?
No.
Okay, we'll go through a bunch of stuff. If you guys have questions later, come back to it. Let's think about the chapter 4, teaching improvisation and composition.
Oh, There's, I don't really have a question, but
Mhm.
there was something I found that I really agree with.
Yeah.
To see not just teaching the rhythms or rules, but let them like learning vocabularies to learn the rhythm patterns.
Mhm,
So that
yeah.
they know, because before I came here, I'm really bad with rhythms.
Okay,
And after I took the percussion
Yeah.
method,
yeah,
I became pretty good with rhythms.
Good.
I mean,
good.
rhythms and rhythms.
Yeah, so they talked about in the book the idea of thinking of rhythm patterns almost as like little words, right? And again, it's not, in music, uh, if we think of that not note by note by note, but groups of notes, then they have meaning more. They have musical meaning. So even tonal patterns, rhythm patterns, harmonic progressions are harmonic patterns, 1-4-1, 1-5-1. You know, think something by itself has very little meaning, but something in a context has a lot more musical meaning. So that's a good principle just to go by. And that's why everything I've done with you guys, that's kind of from a music learning theory standpoint, that's one of the big differences of that approach, is this idea of patterns versus piecing together individual sounds, right? So at some point we focus on the individual sounds, but then we put them back in context. You know, when we're working with teaching them to write music notation, you know, we're giving them the vocabulary of whole notes, half notes, quarter notes. Here's how you draw them. Here's how they work in a time signature. You know, we're going through all that stuff, but that's not about audiation as much as it is about just the specifics of how to notate things. You know, so how this system works, and that'd be more the theoretical understanding after they can already successfully do the rhythms or the pitch patterns or the harmonic patterns. Then they're ready to read and write them, and to do them, like I said, the best way to tell if they got it is through improvisation. If they can improvise in a meter, they're audiating the meter. If they can improvise in a tonality, they're audiating the tonality. If they can improvise in a harmonic progression, they're audiating the harmonic progression. So that's why a lot of what we did in developing the musical mind under the creative thinking part, and we'll kind of go back and touch on today, to me, that's not only some of the most interesting and musical things you can do with your kids, it's one of your best teaching tools. Because just, even for those who can't quite do it, just trying to do it helps them jump ahead way faster. And they kind of see the point and see what they're missing and see what their friends are doing, and then that helps them make sense of it a lot more quickly. For you, it's one of the greatest assessment tools, whether as an actual graded assessment isn't the point, it's more you just kind of interacting with them and seeing how they're doing. It's that formative assessment. Improvisation activities really let you know where the audiation level is with the kids. And then once you know it's there, you're ready to go to the next step of whatever you're working on. So, all right?
Yeah. I forgot which chapter, but they said to include dissonance in the, I was wondering how do I do that?
Okay, give me a little more context of what were we talking about at the time?
I don't remember which chapter.
Okay.
But
That's in improv and composition.
yes.
In improv and in composition, okay, yeah. So the first dissonance we get to is dominant 7 chord. You have so fa against each other. But he's probably talking about as they get to more advanced levels, teaching them harmonies and like things like suspensions and things that work as dissonance. And one thing, you don't necessarily want to shy away, even when you're experimenting with things with the kids. If they're doing something like I remember when we got to playing a round in a book where, you know, they play the first measure, then the next group starts, and when they get to the second measure, then the next group starts, and it all kind of works together. It's like melodic harmonization, right? Like a row, row, row your boat type song. So we got to the first one of those, and then when we played the next song, one of the kids said, "Hey, could we play this one as a round too?" And instead of saying, "No, that would sound bad," I said, "Let's try it and see what happens." And then there was a lot of dissonance. And I said, "So why do you think it worked in the first song, but it didn't in the second?" and then we're having this conversation about consonance and dissonance and which notes kind of sound better together and which ones kind of are unpleasant to our ears to sound together and why, and then talking about how composers can use dissonance to get certain sensations and feelings across, you know. If you just only work with consonants, then that's kind of part of the harmonic palette, but it's not the whole palette. So that's probably what they're referring to without me just kind of scanning through the section again. So how to include dissonance? It'll come up naturally a lot of times in rehearsal, every time somebody plays the wrong note. But you can have them like hold chords and see what happens if you change notes. And just you'll have pieces that have purposeful dissonance in them. So having them listen to it, bring out the dissonance and then let it resolve, and talk about what that does from sensation standpoint in the listener, and just kind of focusing on that. When we get to our harmonic improvisation activity, the last step is to add non-harmonic tones, and adding non-harmonic tones in an improvisation is a way to have dissonance, and that's where it can happen a lot of times. So that would be another way, but just I'd say just be sensitive to in music. It's not just consonants all the time. It's an interplay of consonants and dissonance, and pointing those things out to the kids and incorporating that in activities you're doing, especially at the more advanced levels. At first, you're just trying to get them to do something that sounds consonant, right, instead of accidentally being dissonant. But eventually, teaching them how to purposefully be dissonant with suspensions or some of the jazz chords that have an added 2 or 6 to the chord, and those are the sounds, and they leave it there and they don't resolve it. And what effect does that have on us? You know, so that'd be kind of the more advanced level of teaching harmony, is teaching dissonance and harmony as well. So yeah, good question. That's if you can get your kids there, you're doing really well, frankly. But that's something like if I had an elective composition class, that we would deal with that with those kids a lot. In an ensemble setting, we would interact with it as it came up in the music and just stop and think through it and talk about it and figure out the why and what it's doing and why is it there, and experiencing those sounds, learning how to play dissonance in tune, because people tend to shy away from it, and that makes it even more dissonant because it's more out of tune. So all that's part of the world of teaching harmony and harmonic progressions. Yeah, good question. Okay, let's look at that. Good. Let's get going with our, I think for the rest of this first hour, let's just do, again, kind of getting things back in our mind from previous classes and then applying them to our present teaching. I'm going to give you a sheet that you've had at least once, if not twice, from me, but as you're thinking about actually teaching now, this is a good resource. So here's a sheet where I just quickly summarize the tonal, solfege, and rhythm syllable systems, help you remember the rules, help you remember how things work. Maybe you have it all in your head. If you do, great. Maybe this is a way that would be helpful to explain things, or just have as a resource. So with the tonal solfege system that we've taught you here, we call that movable do with la bass minor. So what does that exactly mean?
So the do is not C.
Yeah, right. So in a fixed do system, the do, re, mi's are just another way to do ABCs, right? They work the same way as our letters do. And do is always C, re is always D. It's just replacement for letter names. And actually, people use those that way before they had letter names. So that was kind of the original system that they used for that a lot of times. And then what do we mean by la-based minor? What's the difference with that system?
You're using the same intervals that you would be if you were singing instead of like a do bass minor, which that just gets really confusing. Well, it just keeps you starting on the 6th scale degree and going up from there.
Yeah, so
I don't know how to
you're,
describe it.
yeah, so learning how to talk about these things, and that's the whole reason I'm going through this, right? So with movable do, do can be any note of the scale, depends on what the key signature is, right? So that's kind of the idea there. With la-based minor, each of the syllables is the resting tone for a different tonality. So do is the resting tone for major, la is the resting tone for minor. The other option is to have do as the resting tone for every tonality, and then use chromatic solfege to change the other notes. So with the movable do system, you're pretty much just using the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, and ti syllables. With harmonic minor, you raise so to si, but that's about it. Melodic minor, fa to fi, so to si. You know, there are very few differences. As you go through just the modes, there are no differences with those, right? So yes.
I was wondering if I run into like in a teaching situation, there's students that grew up with fixed do,
Mhm.
and it's like a cross mix of movable do's and fixed
Mhm.
do's. Should I separate them or?
Yeah, I mean, if somebody has something that's different, I'll tell you, in the United States, most elementary programs use movable do. That's a European thing, and other countries that were influenced by specific European countries that do fixed do. Movable do is becoming more common because of it's tied to teaching audiation. So I think in the U.S. you won't run into that very much. In other countries that would be more a thing, and you can always. It never hurts to teach them a new system with any of this stuff. That's just another way to learn to think about music. So it'll be confusing at first and a little annoying to them, but if you explain, like if you have high schoolers that come in that are pretty good at fixed do, first of all, you'll in the U.S. you'll almost never run across anybody who's pretty good at anything until you do it with solfege. They're used to letter names and counting because everything's just been taught from the page using that kind of traditional system. But if you did, you could just kind of explain, this is better for the type of thing we're trying to do with it. So I know it's weird, just get used to it as fast as you can. You know, it's kind of like kids that come in with a counting background and you're having them do rhythm syllables. It'd be that same type of thing.
Because I remember, because I grew up with fixed do's.
Yeah, yeah.
And I didn't know until I came here.
Uh-huh.
And during practical musicianship, I struggled a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
And I talked to Dr. Green, and Dr. Green asked me if I grew up with fixed do.
Yeah.
I just realized. And
Yeah, so you didn't understand why what you knew wasn't what they were doing, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. If you find somebody that is from that background, just kind of explain. In our program, we use the letter names in a way that you're used to using the syllables, and we use the syllables in a different way. And so they're kind of for two different purposes or reasons, you know. So.
And for me, I understand the movable do, but
Okay.
when I use it personally, I
Uh-huh.
always think of fixed do.
Okay, yeah. So you came in with a system, like we talked about syllables being tools, and you already had a pretty effective tool that helps it work for you, you know. But and it's like I can audiate letter names too, because that's what I grew up with, you know. But or scale degrees. I got 1 through 7 in college. You know, you can learn to audiate using different systems like that. The reason we use movable do is because you can go from key to key to key to key to key without changing the syllables. It's really easy for kids to be able to hear the tonality in a new key without having to learn a whole new set of syllables each time. So, and even from tonality to tonality to tonality without changing the syllables most of the time. So it's just a really simplified way to learn to audiate compared to fixed do, where every single one of those is different every single time. But yeah, whatever you grew up with, if you did it a lot and got good at it, you can use that as a tool, you know, for sure. And I'm just saying, I recommend using letter names as the fixed thing because they go with the fingerings, they go with the staff lines and spaces, and use the syllables when you're dealing with audiation and the sounds of music. And if you always use it that way, then the sounds and the syllables are kind of tied together in that way in their mind. And then the letters is more for when you're talking about, or identifying things in music. The syllables are for singing or chanting, so they have kind of two different purposes there.
How can I help them with what I can?
What's that now?
How can I help them? Because I think in the class I'm gonna teach multiple those.
Mm-hmm.
But how can I help just in case if there's a student that do fix stuff?
Yeah, you just talk to them, explain what you're doing, and just say it'll take a little while to get used to, and just do the best you can. And if you have questions, come ask me. So most kids are that you get will not be like you didn't get this till you're in college. If you're teaching secondary, most of them won't be proficient at anything yet at that point. So if you do something consistently, that'll be the first thing they get proficient in. A very few kids that had lessons all the way up through might be different, but that's just one kid here, one kid here. And then with them, you just kind of talk to them and help them understand what it is you're doing and why it is you're doing it. And most of them just say, okay, so it's another thing I'm learning, you know. and you don't insult the other way. There are reasons to do the other way that their teachers use, and it's good for certain things. So if you just say this is a different way that's good for different types of things, especially when we're learning to audiate, you know. And once they know what that means, then that kind of makes sense to them. All right, yeah. I would say I never ran across the fixed-o thing. I'd run across every time somebody would transfer in with the counting versus rhythm syllables, and I'd have that conversation with them. So, yeah. Usually after a month or two, they're great. Yeah, it's just a matter of learning to do it a little differently. So, okay. One more minute. Oh, okay. So let's finish going through the top here. So, in chromatic alterations. So this is referring to do, di, re, mi, fa, fi, so. You have the half steps in there that you can do that kind of coordinate with sharps and flats in written notation, right? So there's actually a way of using notation or using the solfege syllables that instead of using chromatic alterations, they kind of change keys. Like they teach them to audiate, like if it's something that has a alteration, that's probably because you're using like a secondary dominant or you're using an altered chord, and it's kind of learning to hear that in that key that it belongs to. So to me, that's just really kind of contrived and complex and unnecessary, but you know, that's what almost everybody uses chromatic alterations in some way. So that's just kind of a little niche thing that we don't, that I'm comparing and contrasting to right now. But I've actually seen choral music scores, especially written out with the solfege syllables under the notes, and they'll do like if it's do in this key but so in the other, they'll do D/S, and then they'll go on as if it's in the other key for the rest of the measure or for the rest of the phrase, and then they'll do another something/something, and then it's back in there. You know, so that's just so you know that is a thing that a few people do, but most people do chromatic alterations. All right, syllables represent all the pitches in diatonic and chromatic scale systems, and I just wrote out the sounds of each one. You guys are really familiar with that. Half steps between mi to fa, ti to do, majors do to do, natural minor la to la. Raised tones for the chromatic part. You raise your tones to the E sound. Do, di, re, mi, fa, fi, so, si, and lower them to the S sound. Do, ti, te, la, la. In American, it comes out as an A sound instead of F, but technically it's Latin vowels. So, do, ti, te, la, la, so, se, fa. You know, you'll hear it like that. Just we don't use the S sound very much, so we tend to close it down to the A sound. But and then the only one, since you already have re, or re, depending on how you're pronouncing it, then that one goes to an ah sound. So, se, fa, mi, me, ra, re, ra, do, you know, like that. So again, you guys are familiar from your classes about that, but here's just kind of the rules right now for you. And when we get back, we'll sing through each of the tonalities quickly and think through the primary chord progressions for them. Just get that back all in your mind. So let's take our break, and we'll start again at the top of the hour. So So Trevor, I apologize. I just realized I never turned the video back on for a second hour. Well, let's just go back really quickly, quick review. So when we're teaching rhythm, we're connecting rhythm and instruction to movement and chanting, specifically helping them do continuous flow and then continuous flow with beats and superimposed to help them feel the space between the beats for tempo. For rhythm patterns, metric movement, where they're doing macro beats and micro beats and chanting, and then putting that to some physical thing like doing their fingerings while they say syllables, sticking, air bowing, and fingerings. If you're practicing the physical coordination of tonguing, tizzling, tss, 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 tss. So kind of the audiation, then the physical side, and then fully on their instruments. And then we talked about clapping as being one way that a lot of directors will incorporate motion, but it's not necessarily tied to audiation as much as doing metric movement. It's not necessarily tied to physical coordination for most instruments other than crash cymbals, as doing some of those other things. So it's not going to hurt anything, but there's probably the continuous flow, the metric movement, and then the approximated motion of their instrument is a better sequence to use there. We also talked about tips for teaching rhythm. Teach rhythms as patterns instead of individual notes. You need at least 2 notes to be a pattern, so a beat, 2 beats, eventually a whole measure at a time that you're audiating. Sequential instruction allows mastery, so we're sequencing according to audiation, having them move and say things. You can do that a lot more quickly than you can play it with technique, but you can do it by ear with technique even a lot more quickly than you can read it. So having that as part of foundations and warm-ups. And then following the MLT skills sequence when possible, starting with just the sounds, oral, back and forth, adding the syllables and terms to what you're doing, helping them listen for the underlying meter, tonality, tempo, resting tone, tonal center, all those musical contexts, and then tying that to whatever they're reading. And that's where we are caught up. He thought it was going to take longer. See, we did 40 minutes of instruction in 3 minutes. Sorry, Trevor, we left out all the rest, but that's the big points there. All right, while we're waiting for Vanessa, what's going through your minds right now as you're kind of imagining yourself in a classroom? We're talking about teaching rhythm. What kind of questions or thoughts are you having right now? In Vanessa's parents.
I'm always scared that when I give instructions, that students just aren't responding.
Yes. So, like, we've talked about knowing how to explain things quickly in a way kids understand. Takes a lot of practice for all of us. If you're teaching in a second language, I can't even imagine how much more that's a thing. Mike, well, all I would say to you is that in music, often the best way is to model anyway. Excuse me. Do this and you show them, and then echo back and forth and try this, and and then you'll figure out eventually the words. Listen to how your teacher explains things. Kind of think through it once you know the vocabulary. The kids understand better. You think through it ahead of time. How would I explain this? Write it out in a sentence, But a lot of it is, like we said, that 80-20 rule. A lot of it is modeling more so than talking and explaining things when we're in a rehearsal setting. So. All right. So measure signatures. What are measure signatures? Aren't those time signatures? Well, yeah, that's what we typically call them. But time signatures are really measure signatures. They don't tell us anything about time. It's not a tempo. They tell us something about the measure. What do they tell us? They don't even some people call them meter signatures. I would say they don't even consistently indicate meter. They can, but there's other things involved there. So I like to teach these, and again, this is kind of a music learning theory thing. The vocabulary I use is I call them measure signatures. Why? Because they answer two questions about how notes work in the measures in that section or in that piece. They answer how many and what kind. Top note, how many? Bottom note, what kind? You can fit 4 8 notes in a measure in 4/8. you can fit 3 quarter notes in a measure in 3/4. 4 quarters, 2 halves, 3 halves, 2 eighths. That's what it actually tells you. Beyond that, you need more information to know anything else. Okay? So what kind of information do you need? So if meter is how steady beats are grouped and divided, and by the way, that's a really good succinct way to talk about meter. Meter is how we divide our steady beats and how we group them. We group them at the measure level, we divide them into microbeats and divisions and things like that. Okay? So this doesn't necessarily tell me the meter. It does tell me how many of what kind of notes can go in. So how do we determine the meter of a piece if we can't always just assume it from looking at the time signature? What else do we need to know about the piece to know the meter?
Tempo and maybe grouping.
Yeah, the tempo, for sure, and things about how the notes are being grouped, and often we can kind of scan through the piece and figure that out. But what do I mean by that? 3/4 is the best example, and I think you guys are pretty clear on this already, but if the tempo is adagio, do, 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 are we feeling that as one macrobeat that's divided into 3 parts, or are we feeling it as macrobeat, macrobeat, macrobeat? That's probably, the 8 notes are do, day, do, day, do, day. So yeah, technically it could be a triple meter, but if it's slow, 3/4 is going to be, for most kids especially, audiated as a duple meter. The faster we get, the easier it is to audiate it as a triple meter. When we get the tempo that's fast enough so that we can kind of feel that one measure at a time as the macrobeats, then these become, quarter notes have become do, da, dee, do, da, dee. 8 notes, do, da, 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 dee, da, do, da, 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 dee, da. Same thing kind of happens with 4/4. We can't say, oh, if it's in 4/4, the quarter note is going to be the macrobeat. We have to, again, think about the tempo. Because the faster it gets, the more the half notes are going to feel like the macrobeat. The slower it is, if it's really slow, the 8 notes might feel like the macrobeat. I don't know if you guys have ever played Baroque era stuff that's like a largo. A lot of times it's notated with the 8 notes as the macrobeat. So if it is in 4/4, you're really kind of feeling 8 macrobeats a measure. And so tempo has a lot to do with which note value is going to be the macrobeat. So with our kids, we teach them that to figure out what meter it is, we need to look at the time signature, that'll give us a clue. We need to think of how fast or slow the piece is, and then which note value would feel like the macrobeats, and then once we know that, we can kind of make that determination. But really, time signature and tempo, and then kind of glancing through at the notes is how we can figure out a meter. And I would do this from day 1, beginning instrumental music instruction. We'd learn to move and say rhythms in triple meter and duple meter. We'd learn songs in duple and triple meter, and then we'd learn to read songs in duple and triple meter. And what you'll notice is in your instrumental method books, most songs that they notate in 3/4 for beginners, they're playing it really slowly in a tempo. So by the time you speed it up to the tempo you'd sing it at, you can feel it in a triple meter. And I'd actually have them, with songs that were notated in 3/4 and 4/4, it was almost always the case. By the time you got it fast enough that it actually sounded like the real song, you'd be feeling 1 macrobeat a measure or 2 macrobeats a measure. So I'd have them, even that first year, say the syllables through as if that were the case. Let's say that, all right, so we're going faster now, so let's make our dotted half notes the macrobeat and our quarter notes the microbeat, and let's say the rhythm patterns through. Or let's make our half notes the macrobeat and quarter notes the microbeat, and let's say the rhythms through. And learn them to, and then they'd play it a lot more musically because they were actually audiating it the way that the meter is intended to feel, not the way it was notated for beginners. Right? So that's something to just realize. Beginning music is notated often way slower than it would actually be performed. And so therefore, it's making you feel a song really mechanically instead of metrically or musically. So, but a lot of times your kids can practice it and speed it up to the real tempo, and then that's a good time to have them audiate it at that next beat level. So whatever was the macro beat originally is now the micro beats, and you go up to the next longer value, go up from the quarters to the half notes, or the quarters to the dotted halves, that type of thing. So that's something that a lot of directors don't even ever think about, but that's a really important part once they're reading notation. Figure out each song's tonality, figure out each song's meter. There are cues that help you figure out each one. So how do you figure out the tonality of a piece? By looking at it.
On the resting tone.
And because a resting tone could be any tonality, right?
Key signature.
Yeah, your key signature. So you're looking at the key signature, and then what I tell the kids is that, and just like these are measure signatures, key signatures are do signatures. That shows you where do is. It doesn't tell you what tonality you're in yet, but it shows you where do is. A key is two things. It's a letter name and a tonality name. So our key signature tells us where do is. Now we have to figure out, is our resting tone do or is it something else, before we'll know for sure if it's in major or something else. So just like figuring out meter is about tempo and time signature, figuring out key is about, and tonality, it is about the key signature, if there is one. Some music is just, they're all written in, right? But then you have to figure out, okay, what key signature are we kind of in? And then the resting tone. So that's one thing. Every song from day one, as soon as we got songs in the book, we'd find the resting tone. It's almost always the last note of the song, because they were playing all melodies in beginning instruction. Now, how can you do that once you're in a high school band or orchestra? When your part doesn't end on the resting tone necessarily, because you probably end on a chord of some kind, the key signature tells you a lot, and then you kind of look at the set of notes you're working with, and by that point, you can tell a lot of times which one would be the resting tone just by looking at the set of notes that you have. Or you can just have them play some and listen to it and identify it by ear too. So, all right. So a little aside there, but that's one of the important things, helping your kids to identify the tonal and rhythmic context of all the pieces, not just to read individual notes, and to be able to sing the tonal patterns, be able to chant the rhythm patterns, and be able to audiate both of them in a meter and in a tonality before they even practice it. And we'll go through that a little bit later, that whole process. All right, so choosing a rhythm system. We've talked about this a lot in other classes. I just want to, again, quickly for review, some of the reasons that personally I recommend Dr. Gordon's system over some other ones are these. Why I chose the Gordon system. It's based on how rhythms sound and feel, not just how they're notated. It helps develop rhythm audiation. It's consistent across different musics. So as you move from meter to meter, the counting system's great for 2, 4, 3, 4, 4, 4, and then it kind of gets inconsistent. Everybody kind of does their own thing after that. But the idea of in every music you have, every meter, the macro beat is do. The micro beats are do day, do da di, do be, do ba bi. You know, there's a logic to it all. It's consistent as you go from one thing to the next. And then it is representative of all musics. I should write in there all metric musics, because the rhythm syllables really are about metric music. If there's just a feeling of beat without meter, or just a soundscape type thing where it's gradually shifting and changing, then there's no meter at all. But for most of our music, it's metric. So, and then just for the ease of use and transfer, what I mean by that is the syllables, the u, e, the pure Latin vowels, and you're more focused on the u, u, a lot. Those are the most common ones. Kind of a forward and darker set of syllables. So it really coordinates well with the vocal music instruction that they'll do with singing with good vowels and things like that. Whereas for the one I'm comparing to with this is Takadimi, I, it's all back in the throat and bright. You know, there's not as much transfer there, but Takadimi would do all the other ones here for sure. So can you use a counting system to teach audiation instead of just assigning that to different note values? Also, could you teach Kadai syllables in an audiation developing way? Like, are the Gordon syllables themselves necessary to do all this?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
So I'm recommending the Gordon syllables here, and I talked about Gordon or Takadimi both really do all these things. I like a couple things about the Gordon system a little bit better, but as far as the audiation side of things, they both work really well. What about the other two main systems that we have in the counting system and the Kadai rhythms, or Kadai system of syllables, rhythm syllables?
I mean, I think they could also work. I think it just depends on how far they can take you. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, I know that some people have modified Kodai to get you a little further,
Yeah,
and then Takadimi. I think does it go as far as Gordon does?
it does.
Okay.
In fact, a lot of the additions I made, they made. That's one reason why they made a new one, is because Gordon went so far and not all the way like up to professional music. They made one that could go up to professional music and did the same things as when I say Townsend additions. I had made them long before I ever heard of Takadimi, because there was just a couple gaps that I felt like would be helpful to have. And again, Dr. Gordon's point was, well, at that point they're already audiating, they don't really need it. Yeah, that's kind of true, but it's nice to be able to have a consistent system that goes all the way through in my mind, you know. So, but yeah, so what I would say is, yes, you can use any syllable system to teach sound to sight. Counting system doesn't make as much sense until you have measures, and it's also like one level of information more than they need, you know, to be able to audiate, yeah, ba, 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 ba. You don't have to have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and you can have do day, do day, do day, do day. You know, it's like the 1, 2, 3, 4 is one level more than you need to audiate them in meter. What I will say about where numbers are really helpful is when you're making that next jump from audiating rhythm patterns in meter to audiating at the measure level. That's what really counting is. It's kind of talking about the measure level of music. And so when you are audiating 1 macro beat per measure as an advanced musician, then the counting makes more sense at that point. That's way down the path from where we're starting with our kids. So I would just say it's not harmful in any way. In fact, we'll get there. When we're counting measures at a time, we'll count the beats in a measure. You know, so if it's an 8 measure rest in 4/4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2. You know, so when we're thinking at the measure level, I do use numbers in that way. But when we're thinking at the macro beat and under level and about audiating in a meter, at the macro beat and under level, the syllables are a lot more helpful, and that's where your kids will be until they're pretty advanced. As they get into high school, we're hoping to get them to be able to read and audiate at a measure level and a phrase level and things like that. But that's a lot more advanced audiation than the kids are when they're starting. So if you start with that as your system, it's harder to get them to where you want them to go. Then the other thing with counting specifically, it's this thing. It's not consistent. You'd have to make your own consistent version of it, and you could, and then it would work. With Kadai, that's the problem. It's pretty simple. You know, they go so far, and then not nearly as far as even the other ones. So it's really was invented for elementary music kids. But like Noah said, in the last generation, since music learning theory has become more understood, a lot of the Kadai people have started teaching that. See, it used to be just totally connected to notation. The syllables, ta was always a quarter note, tt was always 8 notes. But they've started to teach it without notation as a macrobeat, microbeat thing. The thing about Kadai though is every single different type of rhythm pattern has a different set of syllables. It's not feeling the function of it, feeling the macrobeat, feeling the microbeats. So again, it's not as closely tied to meter as it is to rhythm patterns. So that's the only thing I would say about that. It's limited and it's tied more to rhythm patterns than meter. Counting is most valuable at a more advanced level and not as consistent across the different meters. Takadimi, great, but I like the syllables a little bit better that Gordon uses for other reasons. So that's kind of my thoughts about it. And again, a skilled music educator can use any of them to get the kids doing good things. So, okay. So we went over the, let's see, oh, actually, this would be a good place to stop for a break. Let's see, what time is it here? So let's start again at, let's go about 7 after. And I'll try to remember to start the video this time, Trevor. Okay. So I'm not going to take time and go through this sheet again, but I'm just going to give it to you because again, like the other sheet, it's a good resource for you to kind of remember all this stuff. We got this in percussion class, you may have it somewhere, but this just labels all the meters across the top from easier to more difficult to audiate, all the functions down the side, same thing, and then gives one example of, think of each of these boxes as like a measure with one rhythm pattern in it. It gives one example. And I've used just the do's and do days and over here, but I've defined the different rhythm functions. This is a simple way to explain each of them. I've defined the meters, a simple way to explain those. And then I've showed you what all the bold and caps and lowercase and what that means when I'm writing them out here. So one thing to remember is we don't do this for our kids. We just do it either by sound, orally, or then eventually we tie it to actual music notation. I'm only writing out all the syllables just so you have a reference, kind of like Dr. Gordon does in his textbook. You know, he'll write out the do's and do days, but these aren't things we write out normally. They're things we either chant or read with music notation. Okay? And put that one aside for Trevor. So, let's move on. So, Mike and I over the break were just talking about kind of trying to coordinate music learning theory ideas with a traditional curriculum. Like I said, there are certain curriculum that are totally designed from a sound before sight and generally and particularly music learning theory approach. Most of them are more organized according to technique development. That's how most comprehensive band methods are, so you kind of have to bring that other piece to it, and same thing in the string world. Whoops, I'm sorry. Let me give you a handout, and I can put it on here too. So this is, I mentioned most method books for like beginner, second, third year type students, and even a lot of different method books for high schoolers will have different exercises that are just rhythms by themselves that you can practice with the kids. So glance through this page here. Anything that's written in blue, I wrote in. It wasn't part of it originally. So I'm just kind of superimposing music learning theory ideas on this page, which would just be the rhythm patterns themselves, that written in black originally. So think about the order of easiest to more difficult to audiate as far as rhythm functions: macrobeats, microbeats, divisions, elongations, rest, syncopation, tie, pickup. And which one of those do most method books start with in band? it's whole notes, right? Because technically that's the easiest thing for them to play, just hold out one note for a long time. And that would be a duple meter rest pattern. Macrobeat, microbeat, division, elongation, or not rest, yeah, elongations and rest. If we're looking at number one there, it's whole notes and a whole rest, right? And we talked about audiating long things are more difficult than short things, right? So from a technique standpoint, this makes sense to start there with whole notes, whole rest, then half notes, then quarter notes. From an audiation standpoint, it's backwards. It's actually way down the road for them to be able to audiate this. So if you look down this page, I just put the term on there that's like the most advanced rhythm function you see in this exercise. So in number one, it has a rest, so that'd be like a level 5 down the list there. Elongation in number 2, half notes and whole notes, that's level 4. So what's actually going to be easiest for the kids to start out with audiation-wise is macrobeats and microbeats. Look down this whole page 1. We do get some that have, do we ever have one that has just macrobeats in here? No, it's always rests and it's elongations and all that stuff. And even a tie pattern in there on number 20. Flip to page 2, it's on the back of page 1 now. Look at 21. So from an audiation standpoint, this is more where we would start. And then we kind of work backwards. So you can see that when you're organizing a curriculum according to technique, it doesn't follow the same order as if you're organizing it according to audiation development. So can you use the resources that are here? Sure. But probably not in the order that they present them if you're just talking about like tonal pattern, rhythm pattern type stuff. So either you can make up your own thing or use something from a curriculum, like jump right in. They'll have sets of rhythm patterns and tonal patterns. You guys remember in Developing the Musical Mind, I had you get that Developing Musicianship Through Improvisation book that had a few different songs. It had sets of rhythm patterns and tonal patterns. So there are resources out there you can use. Or you can take something like this and just say, all right, let's start on page 45 instead of 44. And we've said these macrobeat, microbeat patterns. Let's read some of them now. And then go down and show, all right, so on 21, our quarter notes are going to be our do's. Our 8 notes are going to be our due days. Let's move and say these. And then maybe you skip 22 and go down to 25, because that's another macro microbeat. Then 26, 27, 28. Then maybe let's add on divisions. So where are divisions? Let's flip through the next couple pages. Now we're on page 45. About 5 pages in, we have 16th notes. That's the first time we're going to have divisions. So maybe we would do some of those next. And by the way, this is the list from book 2 now. This wasn't even in book 1. So what I'm showing you is there are ways, and this is what I did, to use resources that exist, but you just do things in a different order than they're necessarily presented in the book. If you're trying to teach from the audiation perspective. If you're working on the technique, then it's already laid out in the order it needs to be for them. So, all right. So, that is one of the decisions that you will make if you have that freedom. If you're in a position where you're choosing the curriculum, which a lot of times in smaller schools you will, in larger schools maybe not. Somebody else may, like a district arts supervisor, may make that choice. But no matter what you have in front of you, you can teach from a music learning theory perspective. You just don't. It's just not automatically done for you. Is the point that I'm making here. All right. So you decide if you are choosing something. You decide: do I want it designed that way, and then I have to add in other things, or do I want to design the traditional way with all the other good stuff, and I just have to add the sound before symbol type, the audiation type of side of things. I chose option 2. A lot of other people choose option 1. I was really comfortable with making up all that other stuff myself, so it wasn't a problem. If I had needed more direction on the developing audiation side, I probably would have chosen a curriculum that spelled it out for me, and the conductor's book told me everything to do and all that type of thing. Does that make sense? All right. So I'll show you an example of a jump right in curriculum that is audiation based curriculum, and a little bit later in the course when we're talking about beginning methods, band and string methods. Yes, no?
How do you do this as a private instrument instructor? Because then you get to a point where sometimes maybe you want them to be audiating at a higher level than what their technical ability is at. But you sometimes get students that aren't like that, but you still have to get them at the technical. You have to meet them at the technical.
Right. So that's why we work on them separately. We have a section where we're just doing by ear stuff, and then we have a section where we're applying it as much as possible to the technique. But we have a section where we're just working on technique stuff too, and then we're trying to combine them as much as we can. So, for instance, right now I'm teaching percussion lessons to a 5th grader, 2 8th graders, and a junior in high school. So with the 5th grader, I'm just starting out at ground zero and doing everything the way I would do it. With the 8th graders, I have them working rhythmically. We're talking about rhythm today. I have them working through the set of rhythm sheets I gave you guys in percussion ensemble that are organized according to macrobeat, microbeat division. They're set up in that way, and I have them doing kind of working simultaneously through duple and triple meter that way. For the junior, she was able to do that really fast, so now we're on to uneven meters and working through rhythm sheets with that. But basically anything that they need to play in their music, I'm going to give them drills for the technique to help them be able to do that, and I'm going to give them the audiation preparation exercises they need to do that. So with more advanced students, it's kind of like bringing it to it and going as fast as you can to catch up on the audiation side. With beginning students, you can kind of do them both at the same time. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I think so.
If you give me a specific, I could, no. That's what I need to do.
I'm just trying to think through.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I've started 2 instruments from scratch, and none of them were like going through and playing by ear. Is like, okay, this is your first note.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So I'm just trying to figure out.
So for each lesson, I would usually, just like a band rehearsal, start with 5 minutes of by ear stuff. Whether it's figuring out a song by ear, we're doing patterns back and forth and figuring them out on our instrument. We're connecting sounds to notation. So part of it, if you look at the lesson instruction sheet that I'll send home that tells them what to do for in their practices all week, I have it divided into 3 sections. The top section is audiation, the middle section is technique, third section I just call musicianship, and that's like the pieces they're working on and everything. So I'll have them practicing, and like for audiation, I made up a video where I'm having them do rhythm patterns back and forth, and they can do that at home with me, tonal patterns back and forth, that type of thing. And again, Mike, with technology, it's easier for you to make these available to your students. You may have to make them once, but then you have them, from that point on. And then audiation then also involves like their sight reading, their facility at reading music notation. So I'll have exercises in there for that for the 8th and 11th grader. So we practice. Again, kind of the 3 branches: stuff by ear, stuff that we're reading that's music and or technique based, and then stuff that's the just making music side of things. But one easy way, if you're teaching lessons, that you can incorporate the oral side of things is just have one of the things that they're always doing, things back and forth with you without notation for a little bit each, whether rhythmically, tonally, or both, and then having them learn to sing. If they're beginning, sing everything before they play it, and so they know how it's supposed to sound, and we'll go through that process in a little while. If they're older, just have them learning to sing the basic patterns like scales and arpeggios and thirds and all those things, be able to sing it in a comfortable range, and then they'll just play it wherever in whatever range. With rhythms though, get rhythm sheets that work from simple to complex in some way, and have that as part of what they're doing. As soon as they're reading notation, then the only time, then you're introducing new things orally, but a lot of what they're doing is out of book, even with the audiation side of things, because that's where we're trying to get them eventually too. So figuring out songs by ear, learning to harmonize songs by ear would be a next step, or arrange them, add in other pitches or other rhythms, mess around with it, those types of things. So we'll get to some of that here in a second in our next section there. All right, yes, thank you for those clarifications. So when we think of improvisation for instrumental music, I like to separate it into these kind of 4 categories, and do exercises that are just rhythmic, exercises that are just tonal, then combine them into exercises that are melodic, and then moving on to harmonic improvisations as well, which is really the most complex type, but if you follow a certain sequence, it's accessible for even beginners at some level. All right, so let me give you a handout that summarizes what I'm about to go over. All right, and I'm not going to go off the screen now. Those are just the 4 categories. Let's just look down through the list here. So a good place with rhythm improvisation helps students learn to improvise rhythms and meter. If they can improvise, they're audiating. That's the big principle we as a teacher kind of have in our mind. So this is stuff that's really familiar to you, but I'm just putting it in a list for you. All right. So a good place to start: chant 4 macrobeat rhythm patterns in a call and response format. Do, day, do, day, do, day, do. You know, that type of thing. And I do that with my kids in lessons or in a rehearsal, especially with the beginners in that way. Then have students answer you with a pattern that's like yours but not the same. So I'll say this is improvisation, doing something that's like instead of something that's same. And that's for younger kids, that's how I'd explain it. So maybe change something. So maybe if I go do, day, do, you could go do, day. Or you could just flip it around, or do all do days or all do's. I give them some examples. I practice with some kids, and then they catch on pretty fast to that. So that step B there is really when rhythm improvisation starts. To change, to say something different to me, but it's like mine, just like we were having a conversation. So if I, in language, if I say to Noah, "Hey Noah, how was your band rehearsal yesterday?" And he said, "Elephants are large." You know, that wouldn't be like. That would, or if he said, "Hey Noah, how was your band rehearsal yesterday?" That would be same. But if I said, "Hey Noah, how was your band rehearsal yesterday?" And he said, "Oh, it was really intense. We're preparing for blah, blah, blah." Yeah, that would be more like improvising. It's like it has the ideas of mine in it, but it makes sense. It's different, but in a way that makes sense, right? So at the very basic, easiest level, we're doing these little patterns back and forth, and we're just having them change something. And some people will be like, "Oh, I don't know what to do." And so I'll always give them an out. If you can't think of anything, just do all do's or do all do days, and that's a good answer too. You know, I'll tell them what they can do, but pretty quick they get comfortable and they can all succeed at it. So letter C, demonstrate examples, then have high rhythm aptitude students go first. Start using neutral syllables, and then proceed to rhythm solfege, so oral, then verbal association. So the first times we're doing these is just with bas back and forth. And I'm not worried about what they come back with as much, because I have no syllables to define the parameters yet. I'm just getting them used to responding back and forth, either same or not same, basically. Okay? And then once we put rhythm syllables on, we can say use macrobeats and microbeats, or do's, do days, whatever makes sense at that level to them. All right. So setting limitations at first helps. For example, let's make up patterns that just use do and do day. then they can be creative with them in a very small set of options, and they can succeed a lot more easily than if you just say, do something that's not what I did, you know. And there are billions of opportunities, you know, and they don't know which one to pick. You know. It's kind of like composing. A lot of composers say they compose best when they set restrictions before they start trying the creative process. Yeah. All right, once students can improvise vocally with rhythm syllables and have them respond by playing their instruments. So that's kind of what we did the other day with the tonal syllables. We'll do that this afternoon with rhythms as well. Progress to more complex rhythms and meters as they're ready. So again, sequential, we're going through duple meter, triple meter, uneven meters, combined meters, and then easy to difficult functions in each of those over years of our time with them. Or with an advanced student, months of our time with them. You know, it depends on how quickly they're ready. And then you can, in a group situation, you can make it even more efficient by instead of just you and the whole group, you and the whole group, or you and one person, you and one person. After they kind of get it, then you can split them up in pairs and they can do little rhythm conversations back and forth, and you can kind of walk around and see which ones are understanding the task and which ones are need a little help. So I recommend you use rhythm improvisation skills as a building block to other types of improvisations. Rhythm, we talk. The kids have talked all their lives. They're really comfortable with that. With the tonal aspect, they have to have the control over their voice to sing in tune, to sing confidently and not be shy of people around them. You guys know, you got an oral skills class, and especially if you weren't in choir all the way up, that can be kind of terrifying, right? So getting the idea of improvisation comfortable with them using rhythms is a good start. Now I'm not saying do only rhythms for months and months and months, but get them comfortable with rhythms before we try pitch improvisation. It tends to be more difficult for students than rhythm improvisation. Not because of music aptitude, because of other reasons, like voice coordination, social interactions, all those things, all right? So tonal improvisation, similar process. Once students know scales or arpeggios, they can use them to practice improvising. And I'm just saying scales or arpeggios, any kind of tonal patterns. With younger kids, it might just be bum, bum, bum. Technically, that's an arpeggio, bum, 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 is a scale. So, improvise vocally on a neutral syllable, then with solfege. Students could answer with like patterns that are in the same function, or different patterns in a different function. So, eventually instead of do, mi, do, we're going to improvise major tonic patterns. Do, mi, do, and you go so, mi, so, back. I could say, I'm going to sing you a tonic pattern, you sing me a dominant pattern. That's what I'm talking about here. That would be a much more advanced level of that same pattern interaction type of thing. Because then it's totally different from the sounds I'm singing, right? So, but they have to really have it in their mind and be able to do that type of thing. When using solfege, teacher often needs to help students connect the correct solfege syllables to their tonal improvisations. So again, you're starting bum, 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 that type of thing. But once you are using pitches and you sing, I'll sing you one tonic pattern, you sing me a different one. They'll tend to do this. Do, mi, do, mi, do. Something like that, where they're singing something that's right, but they're not matching the solfege syllables correctly. That should have been so, mi, so. See what I'm saying? So that's a very common thing. So without making a big deal, I just sing back so, mi, so, mi, so. All right, let's try it again. Do, mi, do, so, mi, so. So you're kind of just helping them through that process of connecting the syllables to the sounds. And again, it seems to be a lot more difficult for them tonally than to do that than it is rhythmically for whatever reasons. 3, once students can improvise vocally with solfege, have them respond by playing on their instruments. So now it's a you sing, they play, or you play, they play type of activity. Sing or play 3 or 4 notes from a scale, then instruct students to sing or play 3 or 4 different notes back. That's an easy way to start. If we know C, D, E, F, G, I'll play some of them, you play different ones of them, and that's not even a functional thing. That's just taking a set of notes and playing around with it. Draw their attention to patterns that sound like beginning phrases, so this is the next step of that. Lead away from tonic, and patterns that sound like ending phrases. Lead back to tonic. So I'm going to start on do and go away from do. You start away from do and come back. Bum, 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 whatever, you know. So that's a good way to kind of introduce the question and answer, antecedent and consequent phrase type of idea, and eventually leading to melodic improvisation as well. All right. Now the last one I did, I had different rhythms in it. At first, just do it like everything's on a steady beat and it's just pitches. Then when we get to the melodic improvisation, we add rhythms in. All right, so proceed to arpeggiated patterns instead of just doing, and why do I start with scales on instruments? Because technically it's easier. It's easier for them to think in one note after another. It's easier for them to find the fingerings one note after another. It's not about audiation, it's just about them succeeding, right? But then do the same thing with arpeggiated patterns. I'm going to play a tonic pattern, you play a dominant pattern back. You know, you can do that same exact thing once they know what that means. And then 4, use tonal improvisation skills as a building block to other types of improvisations, like improvising beginning or ending phrases or harmonic improvisation. So once you've gotten to this point, you've done some rhythm, you've done some tonal, they're ready to do melodic improvisation. Number 1, you can play finish the phrase or start the phrase. So instead of me just going bum, 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 and then going bum, 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 bum back, I might go bum, 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 and they might go bum, 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 bum. Again, away from tonic, back to tonic, away from do, back to do, or la in minor, same thing. Instruct students to move away from the resting tone or to the resting tone. Advanced students can take turns playing entire phrases back and forth in a musical conversation. So after they're comfortable kind of doing this question and answer thing back, we could just do like a sequence of phrases. I'll start. Da, 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 da. And somebody could play what might be a next phrase in the song. So what are you having to take from mine? The tonality, the meter, the style, articulations. And if your answer is going to go with mine and fit with mine, it'll be similar in some of those ways. So that would be kind of maybe a high school version of what we're talking about now after they're comfortable doing just little phrase back and forth, part phrases back and forth. And then you could just go around the group, everybody add the next thing. You know, so. And you could have pairs do it as well. Have students improvise variations, rhythmic, tonal, expressive, on written melodies or tunes that they know by ear. So if we know hot cross buns, bum, 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 bum. A tonal variation might be bum, 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 where we're just changing some of the pitches, right? Rhythmic variation, bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 changing some of the rhythm patterns. So that's a fun thing that even beginners can do once they're comfortable playing a piece, and you can do it from songs by ear, or you can do it from a song out of their band or strings book there, and get them used to thinking outside of what they already have memorized, making choices. Expressive, different articulations, different dynamics, different, any expressive element, you can mess around with those too. Harmonic improvisation is improvising a melody over a known chord progression. It requires confidence in improvising rhythm patterns and meter, and in improvising tonal patterns and tonality. Harmonic improvisation skills allow students to harmonize songs by ear. So if you play along with your church sometime, and you're not just playing the notes out of the book in front of you, you're making kind of up your own part, you're doing harmonic improvisation. See harmonic improvisation handout for the steps. Right, so I'll pass that out next. So as you can see, harmonic improvisation, which by the way is the type of improvisation they do in jazz, but also other musics like hymn playing in church. They take a vocal score in book and make up an accompaniment based on it. So this is kind of one of the most advanced types of improvisation, just because it's kind of three-dimensional. You have the meter, the tonality, and the harmonic progression all going at once as you improvise. All right. So this is something we went through in our Developing the Musical Mind This is kind of that whole book, Developing Musicianship Through Improvisation. This is the activity that it's leading you through. It starts with tonal patterns and rhythm patterns that go along with the song, and then it has you gradually do these different steps that I've outlaid here with you. Okay, and then that book goes on and takes it to writing and notating the melody, or notating the song, notating the harmony parts, notating your improvisations, all that too. This is just kind of the sound half of that, getting so you can play sonically along with a piece. Okay, so let's take an actual song and actually do some of this stuff. We'll start vocally here, and then in did I give you the 5 improv? Okay, yeah. I did it without thinking. Okay, yeah. All right, so as long as I'm handing out, I'm passing out handouts here. This is one we'll use in a little bit too. All right. This is 4-part chord progressions in solfege. And so to have a group perform a tonic, subdominant tonic pattern in major, one of the sets of students could be doing do, fa, do, another so, la, so, another mi, fa, mi, another do, 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 and it'll come out with that 1-4-1 progression. That's the type of thing we're doing here. So that you can choose as few as 2 of those and kind of get the sense of it, or you could have 3 or all 4 of them, depending on what level you're working at. So in elementary music, I'd usually have maybe do, ti, do, and do, so, do. Try to get those 2 things going at once. And then middle school, get a chord going, and then eventually all of them as they're able to. In high school choir, I'd have them do all 4 parts, SATB. So, all right, let's go through the, so just in general, this sheet I gave you has all of the baby steps of what you would do with kids all the way through. But just in general, what we're having them do is we're having them sing a root melody or the chord roots with some song. So the song, let's see, let me just get through this real quick. The song that we're going to use today is Long, Long Ago. And let's put it in a key that's easier for us to sing. Alright, so on do, and don't worry about dynamics, just sing it all mezzo forte for now. Ready, let's sing, go. Do, 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 Alright, so we could when teaching a new song, it's always helpful to have the kids notice, are there any parts in the song that repeat? It helps them learn it faster. So what would we say on this one? Are there any parts in this song that repeat? What would it be? Yeah, a lot of repeated rhythms as far as like sections of the song is what I'm talking about.
First 2 measures on
Yeah, measures 1 and 2 are the same as 5 and 6, yeah. So hey, we know measures 1 and 2, we know half the song, right? And then do 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 do. That kind of starts like that, but then ends different. Do do do. So pointing out those similarities helps them learn the piece faster. Just FYI. All right. So do you guys know this one? Is this a tune you're familiar with already? Yes, no, maybe so.
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, let's sing it one. Let's go back here and let's use that song. So, if we're singing, imagine that you're going to harmonize this with single notes, chord roots. Which ones would go where? Try and ideate that in your mind as I sing. Do 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 do. Hello, Miss Smith.
May I come in for a minute?
You may come in for a minute.
Thank you. I have to tell you guys something.
We're musicking.
You have to have proof of your measles immunization before you can go into the schools on February 10th. And you do too. You'll have to have it before you can go observe them.
Oh, okay.
Greenville County is requiring, because there's like an outbreak out in Spartanburg and it's starting to get to Greenville. if you don't have your records or your mom doesn't have them, you can email studenthealth@bju.edu or stop by the student health office before 5 o'clock and they will give you your records or a copy of it. But if you will email them, they'll send you a digital copy. So just have it with you in case you need it. Who's missing? Trevor.
Trevor is, but he's being.
Oh, hi Trev. Okay, good.
Yep.
I'm just saying, where's Trevor? He's right here. That's right. Anyway, does that sound good? So you guys, you have to have them before you go February 10th. I'm not sure how they're going to have you show them.
Yeah, that's what I was
They
gonna
haven't given
ask,
me that
yeah.
yet, but just have it with you.
Okay.
And if not, and you're exposed, you have to quarantine for 21 days, which means you won't pass this class. Basically, you have to do it. So it's okay. And let me ask you this: I have a strings placement, and I had Manasseh there, but I switched it to Mike. Yes, strings.
Mike
You
is
orchestra.
strings.
Yes. Phew. For some reason they put him there, and I'm like, and Catherine Hawks emailed me, and she goes, I think I have a band student and I'm doing strings. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
But they can do strings if they had to, but they would
They
prefer
could.
band.
Yeah.
Okay, well, do you have a car?
No,
Well then, boy, did this work out, because Michael McMillan is doing choral at Hillcrest Middle, where you are.
Okay, good.
Boy, did that work out. I'm serious, because I was like, okay, Lord, work this out, because I had Manasseh there, and I was like, he needs band, and Mike, I go, let me see. Yes, you were strings, I was so happy. Miss Hawks has had a lot of our students before, so you're fine. And then I still then need 3 band. I told her middle or high school placements, I didn't care which, so she said she'd get those to me. I told her I needed them by a week from Tuesday, like a week before, because you know, is that good? But guys, just please make sure, Trevor, you too, get your immunization records, have them with you, so that there's not a problem your first day. Is that good?
And you're saying, like, as a supervisor, I'll show
They
someone
may
at
ask you the
desk,
same
or-
thing, I don't know,
Oh,
just
okay.
whatever they, when you go in to check
Sure.
in, you do whatever they tell you.
Okay.
Just have it in case, is
Okay,
all I'm
sounds
saying.
good.
This could all blow over in 2 weeks, 3
Yeah.
weeks, and we may not need them at all. But right now, Greenville County teachers have to have proof by February 1st.
Okay.
So you guys start February 10th. I just want to make sure you're ready to go.
Yep.
Is that good?
Yay.
Good.
That works out perfectly.
Thank you.
And Mike just got a brand new viola, so.
Hey, nice. Oh, Miss Hawks will love that. So
Yeah.
I will email her and tell her we now have a strings person with her. She'll feel much better. She
Sounds
didn't
good.
care to take the band person,
Yeah.
but she goes, just so
Yeah.
you know. Her instructor coach told her she had you. I thought, well, he could probably do strings. I mean, come on, right? You guys are supposed to do
A
everything.
lot of learning on the fly, but yeah.
And I
we can
did
make it
look
work.
and know what was in the orchestra, so I thought he could do it, you know. But yeah, this is much
Not
better.
as
This is
much
much better though.
Not as much demonstrating,
Right,
but
right,
the musical
right.
side of it.
Right,
maybe.
exactly. Anyway, thank you, thanks for letting me
You're
interrupt.
welcome. Mike, did you have a question for?
Oh.
yes, I was just wondering how long do I have to wait for the immunization?
Well, they'll send it to you immediately. You've already had it. You had to have it before you came to Bob Jones.
Oh,
They will just send you a copy of the record. You should already have had your shots.
so, oh,
Yeah, they just have a copy of the record
So
for
I
you.
have to wait for it.
No, she'll send it to you immediately,
Oh.
like it's a digital copy. Or stop in and she'll give it to you. Now, if you need it, if you don't have the measles vaccine, you can go over to like CVS or Walgreens and they'll do it for you. It's like $100 though, but insurance does pay for it.
Mm.
But you can go ahead and get it. I had a student teacher who hadn't had it. She had
Oh.
to get one last night, so.
Okay.
The difference.
Yeah, it's a shot. No, I'm kidding. I don't know, but I think you've already had it because you were supposed to have it before you enrolled in school. So I can't imagine you don't already have it.
Okay.
You probably had it when you were young, you just don't know.
Yeah.
But
Most
sh-
kids
but-
get it when they're a
Mrs.
baby.
Benson will tell you, and if you don't have it, she'll tell you how to do it. Don't worry. She has been wonderfully helpful.
Oh,
so.
good.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Sorry.
Yeah,
Okay.
It's all right.
Woo, woo, woo. Had to get that done
All right.
though. Okay. See ya.
All right. So now, once again, imagine where we'll use do and so for the song. So imagine where the do's and so's are going. Do 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 actual song goes. All right, so sing do or so, where you think it goes. Ready and go. Do 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 yeah, do 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 do, so do, do 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 do, so do. You guys got it. So that's step one, learning to sing a song with a root melody. We'll do step two in the afternoon. Go ahead and bring your instruments when you come back in the afternoon. Didn't forget. We were just talking about what we'll do about assignments should the break extend past Monday. What I told them is I'll make a video where I just go through my PowerPoints and talk about things that you'll watch, but it won't be like the length of our normal classes because there's no interaction or activities or things like that. And keep up with your quizzes and keep plugging away at that, watching some of those videos and doing your triple I, your instrumental instruction inventory. Remember that's coming up after a few weeks here too, so that's the big project that's kind of in the background right now, that do a video a day or each time you sit down and study, or do 10 minutes of video or something, just keep making progress so you don't have a bunch of hours right at the end to slam you. So.
What is?
So we talked about this the first day of class. It's your first big project, the instrumental instruction inventory. The project's in Canvas in your folders there, in your, I think, week 1 folder. So it'll give you the instructions, but basically there's a whole library of videos that come with our book.
Oh yes, watch the video.
And you watch the video and just tell me a couple things about each one. So yeah, that's what we're talking about. All right. So we were in harmonic improvisation levels. We have a song. We have a root melody. Let's just go ahead and get that back in our audiation. I'll sing the melody. You guys sing the do's and so's. Ready, go. Do 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 yeah, and just like you experienced in the developing the musical mind, if we're teaching a rote song, if we're teaching a root melody, we're helping teach that to the kids. We're not making them figure it out like you did until they're a little more advanced. But after they've done a few, they can probably figure it out too. So go ahead at this point, get your instruments out. We're going to start doing everything on our instruments right after we do it vocally. So let's take a quick sec here and grab those. Have you played yet today on euphonium? Do you have reservoir?
Yeah.
Okay, so you don't need warm up or anything. Of course, what we're playing today practically is a warm up. So it's all within about 5 minutes. And get set up so that you can actually never mind. I was going to say so you can set your instrument down easily, but we're not getting up and down in this one. That'll be later in the hour. For right now, we'll just keep it in your hands. That'll work. So what I'm planning to get to this hour is working through this 5 steps harmonic improvisation with you guys, and then do what we did on the last few minutes on Tuesday, where you guys have a chance to give rhythm patterns and duple and triple and have the others playing back. Okay. As I said, the tonal for teachers is also much more difficult. Rhythm tends to be pretty easy. So, all right. So this time I'm going to play melody, and you guys play harmony. I'll give you a 1-5-1, and we're in. Okay. Yeah. So you. All set. Oh, sorry. We're in C concert. Yep. C concert. Forgot to mention that. Yeah. same as 1, and then so, do. So 3 so's in a do on phrase 2, 2 so's in a do on phrase 4, and we're out. All right. Now, let's move on to level 2. So after the students can sing and play the melody and the root melody, we're ready to start the improvisation part of the activity. So the easiest thing for them to do, again, is improvise rhythms. But instead of just doing rhythm patterns back and forth, we're going to have them do rhythms on the root melody. So instead of on just a single pitch like we will later on, they'll be kind of thinking of when the changes are, but then doing different rhythms on those notes. So this is something that after you've done a bunch of rhythm patterns back and forth, they're ready to do. So let's pretend we've done that. What meter are we in? Duple, so do, day, do, day. Those are the rhythms the song uses all the time, and then do, so microbeat elongation. So you can use those. If you think of some other duple meter patterns you want to play, go ahead and play those as well. Just be thinking ahead and remembering when it's time to change. And if I was in front of young students, I'd be showing them the 1s and 5s, so those who couldn't audiate at that level yet knew when they're supposed to change notes. For you guys, I'll just play along on the piano. All right. So this time, let's see what you can do rhythmically on the 2 notes of our root melody. So, did anybody put any rests into your improvisation that time? Let's do it one more time. This time play around with putting some rests in there. Can succeed pretty well at this level. So when we're talking about the 5 steps to the harmonic improvisation level, each step goes one level more complex. But the cool thing about this activity, a student can stay at the level that they're comfortable with, and it still sounds good with everything else. So we'll all practice it, but then when we actually perform it together, and we would actually, with beginning and even second year groups, do songs like this, make up kind of little arrangements of ours, and then put them on concerts, and just have a arrangement by ear that we come up with throughout the semester, which they really loved. There'd be like one student, lower aptitude, often that I'd have to write something out so they could remember it, but pretty much everybody else was good as long as we practiced it, consistently. So improvised rhythms on root melody, step 2. Step 3 has a couple it's a process to get through. It's not just, okay, now we're going to do this. So step 3 is about changing just the roots into chords. So the first thing that we have to do is get the kids used to singing and playing in chords and being able to think quickly, what are my options for notes in each chord. So this is where the do, mi, do, so, fa, re, ti, re, fa, so that we've been doing, singing, learning how to play on our instrument. If they've done all that, they're kind of ready to do this at this point. But let's just practice a couple things. One is that sheet I handed out to you where we're kind of splitting the group up into different chord notes for chord progressions. Okay, so you don't have to get it out, but that's kind of what I'm doing with you right now. So let's do. We have a dominant or a tonic and a dominant harmony in this song. So for tonic, or some of our options are we could do do, so, do, like we just did. We could also go mi, fa, mi. So one of you, that'd be a good part to do. Another one would be so, 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 and then do, ti, do. So if you look down that sheet, those would be like part 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, and I kind of arranged it so one's like soprano, alto, tenor, bass, like that as you go from 1 to 4. So if we only have 3 of us here, we can still do the chords. We're just going to leave one of those out. Leave the one out where the note doesn't change, and it'll still sound like the chord. So in our case, that we won't have anybody doing the so, so, so part. We'll have somebody doing the other 3. And you'll be missing a note in each chord, but it's doubled in the 5 chord anyway, and in the other chord you'll have do and mi, and do, and it'll still sound like a major chord. All right. So, and then if I have a keyboard, I can just play chords and fill in too. All right. So 3 players. Give our bass person the do, so, do. Let's go. It doesn't really matter between you guys. Let's go the mi, fa, mi, and you'll do the do, do, ti, do, whichever octave you choose, but you can balance better if you do a higher note rather than a lower pitch on the instrument. Okay, so let's just hold those out and get used to doing those 3 notes. So here's tonic, do, mi, so, play. Good. Take your notes up an octave, Mike. Ready, go. And again, same thing as flute. We can hear it better now. It is the only reason I'm doing that. Probably if I had violas, I'd have you doing the tenor line anyway. But for 3 of us, I'll have you do the alto line. Okay, cool. So this time I'm going to start you on the piano, play the melody, and you guys just, like we did the first time, play each of the chords instead of play each of the roots. So when it would go to dominant, change. When it come back to tonic, change. All right? And again, with kids, I'd be sitting up here showing them when to change. And we'd practice with me singing and you playing and all that. Those are some of those in-between steps that aren't on this screen that are on the handout I gave you. All right? But the end of this first half of step 3 is this type of thing. Down the arpeggiated version of those harmonies. So let's just practice together. Everyone sing do, mi, so, mi, do. Do, mi, so, mi, do. So, fa, re, ti, re, fa, so. So, fa, re, ti, re, fa, so. Do, mi, so, mi, do. Do, mi, so, mi, do. And I'm assuming at this point that we've already figured out how to play those on our instruments. So, and we've done it for a while now, so you can play it faster up and down. So let's actually do it at that tempo that we just sang it. All right, so think of your do, mi, so, mi, do in the key of concert C major there. All right, ready and play. Do, mi, so, mi, do. Do, mi, so, mi, do. Change. So, mi, re, ti, re, do, so. Do, mi, so, mi, do. Okay, so you kind of see what we're doing every time I'll show you. You just do that pattern up and down.
Yeah.
All right, once again. Yeah, go ahead and get the notes, the so, fa, re, ti in your mind. So B, G, F, D, B.
It's just doing it on
Yeah.
the spot. That's the only thing.
Yeah, and again, I'm jumping steps here. We go slowly, figure this all out, and do it like half of that tempo at first. But you guys are college music majors, so I'm pushing you. All right, once again, ready and play. Do, mi, so, mi, do. Do, mi, so, mi, do. So, mi, re, ti, re, do, so. So, mi, ti, re, do, so. Ah, don't guess. I'm showing you 5. Play 5. I'm going to mix it up here. See if you're paying attention. Again, ready, go. Do, mi, so, mi, do. So, mi, re, ti, re, do, so. So, mi, re, ti, re, do, so. There, now here's getting comfortable moving around the options for each of the chord. Now this time, instead of me giving you notes to play in your chord, you get to pick them. All right? So the one tricky thing is, every time we get to a new macro beat, you have to change to a different note in the chord. So it'll be like da 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 da, and every time I do this, you're switching to a different note. All right. So if it's really hard for you to think of all three, just choose two and go back and forth on them. But just change in some way as I'm showing you each beat. Okay. Ready and go. Okay, yeah, you were thinking the song. I'm just practicing the skill right now. Yeah, we'll get to that. Again, 5, ready, go. Again, and this is always the hard one for them too. We have to practice dominant a lot. One more note, and you have dissonance in there. Ready, go. Whoops! I changed. Some of you aren't paying attention at all. All right. I'm not going to do the same thing. I'm working it so you can change every single one eventually. All right. Here we go. 2 beats on each one. Ready, go. Good. Now let's change back and forth. Ready, go. Okay, yeah, so I'm gonna, so think tonic, then dominant, then tonic, and you're switching sets of notes, and frankly, if I'm doing this every time, you can choose 2 notes and go back and forth, but that's up to you. Ready, go. And again, I'm doing this in a way that challenges you. We just like hold each one out for a long time until everybody got it, hold each one out, and then gradually go faster and faster. All right, now, you guys practice, we'll practice the pattern of the song now, so you'll know when the changes are coming up. But instead of just changing on the slow beats, change on, if this is do, change on the do, day, bum, 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 like that, all right? Let's do the best you can. Ready and go. The easier one would be just changing every time I do that, right? So let's go ahead and play the song this time. And you can choose if you want to change on the slow beats or the faster beats, but just make sure you're going to the right set when the chord change comes, okay? That's where we're headed to with step 3, getting so they can change chord tones with the harmonic progression of the song, just on steady beats. Step 4, combine their tonal and rhythm improvisation. So now, let's all, just to give you a chance to settle it down, let's go back to just changing on the slow beats, on the big beats, so to speak, and then do rhythm patterns on whatever note it is. But then when the next one comes, change notes and do rhythm patterns on that. All right, so let's just practice that skill first. A bunch of ones, a bunch of fives, a bunch of ones. We'll just go back and forth and get used to changing and doing rhythm patterns. So do's and do days, do to datas, syncopation patterns, rest, whatever comes into your mind in duple meter here. Do and ready, go. Oh, you're thinking the pattern of the song. Yep, so we're not there yet. We're just practicing a bunch of ones, a bunch of fives, getting used to moving around when we do rhythm patterns. Again, 2, ready, go. Manassa went to the next step. He put in passing tones, so that's actually step 5, non-harmonic tones. For now, yep. So what we're doing now is just we're staying on the chord tones, so everything they play, as long as they're in the right chord, sounds good together.
Is it harder to do without melody?
We're just practicing a skill right now.
Okay.
I think you guys are trying to think the song in your mind, and that's messing you up. But if we were just like, we wouldn't do this all in one day, right? This is like a new activity that we're just practicing changing notes on ones and fives. It's not tied to anything yet.
Okay.
And then we'll put it in with our song once we can do it, type of thing. All right, but yeah, you guys want to change because you're thinking the song, you're harmonizing, and you're like, oh, that doesn't work. All right, here we go with the melody. And also, if you have a keyboard in your room, you can play chords in one hand and the melody in the other, and you can have both going to kind of prop them up and support them, okay? For right now, I'm letting you guys do the chords, and I'm doing the melody. Ready, and go. That's it. Step 5, add harmonic, non-harmonic tones. So now, in between the big beats, if you want to play scale notes, then just make sure you're back to one of the chord tones by the time we get to the next beat. All right. So let's do it first of all. Instead of bum 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 bum, now you can do bum 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 bum. You can do like little counter melodies, basically, is what you're doing, or obligato parts here. All right, so let's just practice that skill, not the song. I'm going to show you a bunch of ones. I'll do 4 ones, 4 fives, 4 ones, 4 fives. So we'll go back and forth a little bit and just get you used to improvising. Just make sure that you're back on the chord tone every time I show the next chord. Okay? Ready and go. Okay, yeah, right, Chai? Yeah, so the main thing that you got to practice is making sure you land on the chord tones. It'll actually sound good if you do. If not, you'll have a bunch of clashes all over. All right, so on the main beats, land on the chord tones. Let's start with the dominant pattern again. That's always the hard one. Ready. Then back to 1, yeah, 7. Okay, so now let's just practice without the melody, but I'll use the pattern of the song, the harmonic pattern. Ready and play. together. You can have 80 people, and as long as they're all landing on the chord tones, it's a little chaotic, but it kind of goes together and sounds musical. It's not just total chaos, right? Yeah.
I have a question. I don't think the kids are going to get it.
Like I said, you see that big sheet with a whole bunch of steps,
Yes.
like one step in a day. You know, and throughout months you get through the whole thing. But I will tell you that by Christmas time, we could, with beginning band, we could play a Christmas song that used tonic, subdominant, and dominant, with most of the people playing chords and a few people improvising. So it wasn't the whole group improvising at once, because that just sounds chaotic. But it's like when you have one at a time improvise, it becomes a counter melody to the melody. So it's very possible, but it's a slow, gradual process. And even with high schoolers, most of them have never done anything like this. So it's a slow, gradual process where you're looking at each line on that sheet I gave you out of the 50 lines, and you're maybe doing one of those in a day. You know. So right now, I'm giving you the whole sequence in 25 minutes, right? But yes, you're right. Most people couldn't do what we're doing right now. I'm doing this only because you're college music majors. All right, so let's go. And I'd like to challenge you, but I also want you to see where the end point is. Okay, so now I'll give you chord progression. You guys improvise over the melody this time. Okay, so remember I said that when we play together as a group, you can choose any one of these. And if you're just playing the chords, roots, that's all you can do, it's going to add and sound good. So that's one really cool thing. Dr. Chris Azera kind of made up this sequence, and he has a background in playing by ear and jazz and that whole world. And he's basically me at another college, only a generation before. He's put together this really cool sequence. You're practicing the patterns you need for a while. You're practicing how to play the tune. You learn the root melody, and then you spend a long time on each of these skills. And on the sheet I gave you, there's baby steps that help you get each of those skills instead of just telling them to do it and having them do it like I'm asking you guys to do. All right. So, but think about the musicianship and the connection between sound and their instruments they have to do these types of things. If they can do this, you'll almost never have to mention anything about intonation, right? The level you're audiating to hear a melody and harmony and counter melody all at once is so far beyond basic just tune a chord. And precision, rhythmic precision, you know, I'm not sitting here telling all of you what to do rhythmically. You're audiating the meter and staying in it. You know, by the time they can do these things, their musicianship's at a much higher level that will help them in every way. So, the cool extension off of this that I even would do with my beginning band members is we take a song out of our book and do this with the song. And so some could read the melody, some could figure out the chord roots and play them, or chords, or I'd show them. And we'd harmonize the song this way, maybe one a week that way, kind of as a reward, fun time, and the kids loved it. So, all right. So now, let's see. Let's do a little bit more like what we would end up with. I'm going to play chords. Let's have one person play melody, one person improvise, and one person play root melody. All right. So, does anybody want to do this type of improvisation, be the one that's making up a counter melody is what we would say. I mean, you all just did it.
A counterpoint?
Look, who can do step 5 for us this time? Raise your hand. Okay? No one can? All right, so who would like to play melody for us? We actually haven't practiced that on your instrument yet, but all right. Maybe let's all practice melody.
I was thinking probably practically.
Yeah, the bass instrument sounds best on the root melody, so maybe let's have him do that, and let's have Mike play melody here, but let's all practice melody one time. Let's sing it through a solfege and just do your fingerings along with it once. Ready and go. Do, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, sol, mi, sol, fa, mi, re, do. Do, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, sol, mi, sol, fa, mi, re, do. Good. Let's all play that now. Ready and play. Kind of chord around. You hold those roots out nice for us. You make up a counter melody. You play melody. And we're listening for melody, so upright balance under him. I'll give you 1, 5, 1, and you're in. That's kind of the finished project, only imagine most of the group doing chords instead of one person doing counter melody. Maybe all the flutes do melody, or 5 volunteers do melody, most of them do chords, and one at a time do a counter melody. And that's a cool little arrangement that you can come up with 2 or 3 verses of a song, just maybe even make a little introduction, little ending to it, where you're holding out notes or something, and you have your whole band or string orchestra arrangement there. So, and then, if you want to go one step more into composition, write it down. Speaking of, some ideas for composition. Readiness is just practice writing notation. So at some point, we're going to need to practice writing some quarter notes, some 8 notes, some clefs, some key signatures, all that stuff that we do in a traditional beginning music theory type of organization. They can't just go from audiating to writing notation with nothing in between, right? You need to kind of practice the skill of writing. All right, and a lot of the more modern, the more recent band and string method books have opportunities for them to do that, have different writing exercises kind of spread throughout the book a little bit to get you going, and have more ideas for them in the conductor's score. So if you've never looked through a conductor's score for a beginning instrumental method, it's basically teach a bunch of stuff to the teacher or provide a bunch of resources for the teacher. It's not just the score. There's a bunch of notes all over. There's a bunch of things you can look up online and download. There's tracks that go along with it. You know, it's a whole comprehensive curriculum for any of the main ones anyway. All right, so readiness is just practicing writing notation. So a good place to start is just dictating some of those familiar rhythm patterns and tonal patterns. Again, we start with just the patterns and we start with them separate, so we don't have to think of 2 things at once. 3, notate the melodies they can play by ear. So if they can play it by ear, they already know and can audiate it. Now it's just a matter of how do we represent that in notation, and you can kind of help them through the process as a group, and then once you do that a few times, they gradually get so they can do it on their own too. 4, you can notate the chord roots, the root melody, to a song you just learned like this, and then eventually you could notate the chords. So maybe on one line we wrote the melody, on the line below it we just wrote the chords and half notes, would be how it would be for this song. And then at whatever level of improvisation they got to, they could write down their part that they got to. Even a counter melody that they kind of work on and try and do the same each time and write that down. And then basically you have the same thing as you would if you'd gotten a simple band arrangement or string quartet arrangement or something. You know, you have a melody, you have a harmonic structure with some rhythmic aspects, and you might have a second contrapuntal part at some point. All right. And then the next step is composing original music. And again, a lot of times it's helpful to give them some beginning structure, but a good way to do that is teaching them about form. And all right, let's make the first 8 phrases one tune. Let's make this next 8 measures another tune, and then we'll come back. We'll do an A, B, A, or first A, B, A, B, A. You can get into rondo, you can get into theme and variations, the same tune but change it each time. And so whatever they learn to play, they can learn to write as well, and then eventually they can just write without that first step of things that they're making up in their mind too. So, all right, so again, just some ideas, get you going. Let's see what our time's at night. About 10 after. Let's practice a little bit, and I'll turn off the projector so it's not in your eyes. I'm not going to even have you read notated patterns or anything. I think we can just do this off the fly, and it's good practice doing it anyway. So what I'd like you to do, well, I'll do exactly what I'm going to have you do, and then you guys will take turns coming into it. Okay? All right. Let's all play on a concert C, and go ahead and play the rhythm patterns that I'm saying to you. And let's pretend we just already set them back and forth. Now we're to the next step of playing them back and forth. All right? Do, day, do, day, do. That context pattern. Do, day, do, day, do. Do. Yeah. So we're past the repeat. Now we're on to the play. Do, day, do, day, do. Everybody on a concert C, please. And ready again. Do, day, do. Do to day to do, day, do, day, do. Do to do. Do to do. Yeah, good. All right. So that's the idea. Triple meter, same thing. Do da dee da dee do. Rest. 2. Do da dee do. Do da dee do to dee do. Do da to dee to 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 do. Do to da to dee. Do to da to dee. Do ta ta to do. Ooh, nice. I wonder if you guys will get that. Okay, so I got complicated with you. You guys can be as simple or complex as you want. I'm not limiting you to any do's and do days or anything like that. So just whatever comes to mind, give us a 4-beat pattern and we'll perform it back for you. But all right, so I'm going to say some duple meter patterns. You play them back. Do day do, rest 2, and then do 4 patterns back and forth. Now I'll say some rhythm patterns and you play them back. Do da dee do, rest 2, and I'm saying rest 2. You don't say that, obviously. You just that's to give them a couple beats to get the meter inside of them. Okay, and then you start it. Make sense? All right.
What's the context?
What's that?
What's the context thing again?
So it's just macro beats and micro beats, like 4-beat pattern. Do day do, or do da dee do. You could do a number of things. That's the one I'm giving you. So
Okay.
anything that gives them macro beats and micro beats. Okay. All right, here we go. Mike, you're up.
What these patterns are we?
4 of each.
Oh. Do we look at the sheets or?
Yeah. Just tell us some. Again, if all you can think of is do's and do days, give us 4 of those, right?
Okay.
If you can do something more complicated, that's fine too. There's no, the content isn't the thing, just do something in duple meter, then something in triple meter. 4 different patterns.
I'll be saying a rhythm pattern, and you will play on your instrument.
Context
Do
pattern.
they? Oh.
Yeah, good.
Do they do? Do they do?
So they would come in then, so that's why I like to do this.
Oh.
Yeah. So do they do, do they do. Just remind them, do, and then you're going on.
Do they do? Do they do? Do.
Don't direct them.
Oh.
Let them audiate it. I know it's hard. Keep going.
Do they do? Do they do? They.
Okay, so you confused us all because you made it things different lengths. As long as you keep everything in 4-beat chunks and never stop, then they know when to come in. All right. So like you wanted to do rest note, I'm guessing. Yeah, maybe we can come back to this a little bit when Trevor's here too. Give him a chance. But so to do what he just did, he already did. One pattern, so right off the end of that, you immediately go into the next one without stopping. As soon as you stop, they don't know what the context is anymore. Okay? So if you're doing, I'm going to do from the beginning. Do they do? Do they do? 1, 2. Do they do? Bum 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 bum. Do bum bum. So remember, you got to give them a breath and a downbeat. But then what I was saying is you don't conduct all the way through their pattern. Just give them the breath and the downbeat each time. And I know it's been a while since we practiced all this stuff, but don't worry, we're not performing, we're just practicing right now. Okay? All right, so do 2 more duple patterns.
Do they do? Do they do?
Almost. Try it again.
Do they do? Do they do? Do ta 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 do. Do ta 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 do.
Now, how do they know when you're going to come in?
Ta 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 do.
Yeah, but you don't have to conduct the whole thing.
Yeah,
Do to day to.
Oh.
Okay, everybody practice with me. We're going to use this pattern. So we're going to say it and then play it. Let's practice the hand positions. Ready, go. Do to day to do. Do to day to do. So on the upbeat, that's when you give them the ictus. Do to day to do on beat 4. Do to day to do. Bum 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 bum. Do day do day do day do. Bum bum bum. Yeah. So that's the coordination thing. All right. Try a couple of those.
Do they do? Do they do? Do ta 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 do. Do ta 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 do.
Okay. Now you just gave us 8 beats of patterns.
Oh, I gave the context.
Yeah. But remember, if you don't stop and do that, then they don't know that's a context, right? Sorry, Mike, I'm messing you up here. So watch me think about what I'm doing. All right, let's do some patterns. I'll say them, you play them. Do they do? Do they do? Do. So I'm making it really obvious. Now I'm starting the pattern. All right. Do they do they do they do? Dum, bum. Okay. So let's do that. 3 do days and a do. You and me practice getting into it. Okay. You're right here. We're doing it together.
Yes.
Okay. So we just told them what we're gonna do. Ready. Context. Do they do? Do they do? Rest. 2. Do they do? Do they do? Now you make up 1.
Do ta 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 do. Do ta 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 do. Do they do? They do.
That's it. Noah, triple meter, 4 patterns, quick as you can. Yeah, I forgot. The rhythm patterns aren't hard to say, but timing all the hand stuff, I forgot I needed to help you guys practice that. So that's on me, not you, Mike.
Alright.
I will say a triple meter rhythm, and you play it back. Do da dee do, do da Do-dotty, do-dotty, do. Do. Do, do, do. Wait.
That's doable.
Yeah, but I switched back. What is the,
Do to da to do to do.
yeah, do, 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 do to da to do to do. Do-dotty, do-dotty, do, do. Do, do-dotty.
Yeah, that's hard. So the nice thing is, if you have patterns planned out, you have them there and you practice them and everything. I'm making you improvise while you're trying to think about your motions here today. All right, you get to choose, duple or triple. Just tell us what you want and then do it.
Alright, I will give you guys 4 patterns in duple meter and play them on concert C. Do they do, do they do. Do they do, they do. Do they do to data do. Do to data do do. Do they do.
Yeah, so just a little technique thing. Start moving your hands out once you get to beat 3 so you can get the snap on beat 4. So do to data do to data do. Instead of do to data do to data do. Isn't that right? It's like, what am I doing? What am I doing? Okay, so we'll circle back to that when Trevor's back here. But just think about that a little. Practice some with yourself in the mirror. Just kind of get that skill back. It's been a while since we've done it. All right. That's all for today. Thanks, guys.